Giants, who rarely take a linebacker in the first round, I don't see them going with a guy that's got a high risk, high reward label to him when they have other areas of need. I could definitely see him going Reggie Ragland at inside linebacker as well, because they desperately need one. But again, 10 is just a little bit high, I think, for him. I don't see them going defensive end at all. They need defensive tackle help, but there isn't really one that warrants the 10th overall pick in the draft. They could go secondary, but again, all the ones that warrant the 10th pick in the draft have already been taken, and so your only other real position, don't believe that wide receiver BS. Slight outside chance of running back with Ezekiel Elliott. It'd be great for your fan base, and you could use an upgrade at running back. But I think you'd be better off with an upgrade on the offensive line, particularly the tackle position. Last year's first-round pick, Eric Flowers, is currently slated to start at the left tackle, really is more of a right tackle. And either way, they've only got one tackle right now, and keeping Manning protected is a huge priority, the number one priority for that offense each and every year that he's the quarterback. So I have the New York Giants with the 10th pick in the draft taking the best offensive tackle available, at least consensus-wise, from what I see, Jack Conklin. Boom. I don't know what college he went to, but tackle Jack Conklin goes 10th to the New York Giants. And with the 11th pick now, the Chicago Bears are on the clock. The Bears, another team, desperately wants Hargreaves. If they can get him, that's their guy. I don't think without a trade-up they've got any chance of landing Hargreaves. And I think your next crop of defensive backs, Eli Apple and William Jackson III, would warrant a small trade down to justify their selection in the first round. You could go offensive line, but Conklin's already gone, so now you're taking Decker, and that's all that's the only tackle left really. Maybe you're going running back to replace Forte with Ezekiel Elliott. However, I think they like Langford, their rookie from last year, enough where they're not going to waste a first-round draft pick on a running back, and they are going to look to help that defense. They need help at inside linebacker, secondary, and defensive line. But defensive line really is more 3-4 defensive tackle or defensive end, and I don't feel there's anybody there, anybody in this draft worthy of taking, at that position that high in the draft. But it is going to be a reach what I have him doing. Some would say. But again, I think this guy's on everybody's draft board, and there's only one at his position. And everything about this guy screams Chicago Bear. Everything you read about this guy screams Chicago Bear, prototypical middle linebacker. So, with the 11th pick in the draft, the Chicago Bears bolted the middle of their defense and their entire linebacking core by drafting inside linebacker Reggie Ragland. Now, the only downside is currently they are running a 3-4 defense, and Ragland is more of a prototypical 4-3. However, the one knock on him is his mobility, his speed, his quickness. And being in a 3-4 inside linebacker, you would think with an extra linebacker in the core that the linebackers would have a little less field to cover then, for the most part, than in a 4-3. So that actually might make up for his one weakness. But in arguably my first real reach on mine that people are going to disagree with, I have inside linebacker Reggie Ragland going 11th overall to the Chicago Bears, and that puts the New Orleans Saints on the clock at number 12. Now, the New Orleans Saints could possibly go heir to Drew Brees and Paxton Lynch here. There are those rumblings. I think that's trade up smokescreen if he's still available, which I think he will be. I also think the talk of a wide receiver complement to Brandon Cooks, like Treadwell or Doxson, is also trade up smokescreen and nothing else. I believe that the Saints have to go defense. Their defense is terrible. They put a lot of money into their linebacking core in the offseason and in the previous draft, and they've got a decent amount of investment in their secondary already as well. So that really leaves the only area on their defense to improve being the defensive line, and being at 12, now you can start looking at the other defensive ends and the defensive tackles in this draft, which there are a lot of really good defensive tackles, but there's no consensus on, like 1 through 6, 1 through 8, or not much difference in those regards. So you're looking for scheme fits and trying to guess who each team rates the highest, not who you rate the highest per se. So it's tough trying to pick defensive tackles in this draft. I will tell you this: Joey Bosa, should he fall this far, and that is very possible depending on how the picks go before him. Like I said, if Dallas doesn't take him at 4, Bosa could very easily fall to the Saints. I really personally think that the only other team that would consider taking him is the Bucs at 9. So if Joey Bosa is there, or the Saints have the opportunity to trade up to get Joey Bosa, I think they would love Joey Bosa. That being said, I think they'd be very content to sit at 12, the way things are most likely to play out, and take whoever is left or whoever they like more between Shaq Lawson and Kevin Dodd, both out of Clemson. I think Kevin Dodd is a better scheme fit for their defense. However, Shaq Lawson is almost consensusly ranked higher than Kevin Dodd on just about every scout's player rankings list that I've ever seen. And I think in a 4-3 defense, Lawson does have added position flexibility to play both defensive end and outside linebacker, where Dodd would only be able to play defensive end. And for that reason, I have the New Orleans Saints at number 12 selecting Shaq Lawson, defensive end, out of the University of Clemson, and that makes the Miami Dolphins on the clock at 13. No reason to explain this one or lollygag. Miami runs up to the podium. They will trade up to get this guy. The Miami Dolphins will get this guy, whether he falls to 13, which I believe he can and will, or whether they chicken out and trade up to get him with somebody. The Miami Dolphins will select running back Ezekiel Elliott out of Ohio State University. That is their guy. They will do whatever it takes to make that happen. And I personally believe that as long as the Cowboys don't do something crazy and take him at 4, and then as long as the Browns pass on him at 8, which they should, your only hurdles then would be 10 with New York, 11 with Chicago. And they're both kind of looking to trade down off of this draft board anyway. So definitely look for the Dolphins to make a trade to number 10 or number 11 to get Ezekiel Elliott. But for now, we have him falling anyway, and he ends up going 13 to Miami. Best running back in the draft by far, day 1 starter, and the only team in the draft both with the undoubted number 1 need to take a running back, as well as the draft position and tools to either select him where they sit or make a trade to make that happen. So with that, the Oakland Raiders are now on the clock at number 14. Now, since we're, like I said, we're running late on time now, we're over 2 hours, and I was trying to keep it to 2 hours. But so we'll try to speed things up just a little bit. Oakland Raiders are without a doubt going defense. They may trade up to get someone they covet. They may trade down. But I really feel the Oakland Raiders are very likely to sit at 14 and just take whoever the best defensive player at any of many areas of defensive need, they have. And again, this is a spot where Reggie Ragland would be a beautiful selection at inside linebacker. Their defense, they are going either defensive tackle, inside linebacker if Ragland's available, or defensive back. I think they're going to be reluctant to go defensive back, A, based off of who's left, and B, just based off of recent history with high drafted, failed to an extent, defensive backs. So I have them going with the best defensive tackle in the draft. They get their pick, whoever they think is the best defensive tackle in the draft. And like I said, there are a lot of names, and no one really seems sure. Rankins, Robinson, Reed, those are, and Nkemdiche, spelled Nkemdiche, but pronounced Nkemdiche. Those are the consensus, for the most part, 4 most talented defensive tackles. However, Butler, Billings, and Clark all have first-round potential as well, but require a little more exact scheme fits, or maybe don't have the position flexibility that the other guys do, and that's what's separating them into that top 4 tier or whatever. But Nkemdiche has, he's a popular pick here. A lot of people believe he's the most talented defensive tackle in this draft. However, his production in college has never matched his believed talent level. And also, he has off-field issues with marijuana busts and just character questions and things of that nature. I don't feel that when you have your pick of all the defensive tackles, that you take him first. So no, he's not Nkemdiche, and he's a big question mark. He could go as high as 14 here, maybe even a little higher yet, or he could fall out of the first round. Be prepared for that. But I believe, based off of their defensive scheme, as well as who has the most talent, because generally the Raiders go with speed, strength, size, some measurable talent over everything else, I am taking the defensive tackle Sheldon Rankins, or Rankins, 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 like rankings, but without the G. Sheldon Rankins, defensive tackle, at 14. And that puts the Tennessee Titans on the clock at number 15. Don't be surprised if they trade up from 15 to get someone they covet. They have the extra picks from trading down to do that. However, I think they've got a lot of needs, and they're actually going to look to trade up in the bottom of the first round or more in the second round, with how deep this draft is and where their areas of need are. I think the Titans would love Reggie Ragland if he's still available here. A lot of teams, I'm telling you, a lot of teams want Reggie Ragland, and that's why he's going to shock you all and go way sooner than everyone's predicting, except for me. But alas, they are stuck with choosing an offensive tackle to pair with Taylor Lewan, or a defensive lineman, which they're terrible at, or a defensive back, which they're terrible at. They're terrible in the secondary. They're terrible on the defensive line. For the most part, they've kind of got their pick on defensive linemen, but picking high in the second round, and with how deep the defensive tackle position and defensive line position is in this draft, it would be a waste, a stupid waste, a horrible blown pick if the Titans went defensive lineman here at 15. If they traded up for like a falling DeForest Buckner or something crazy like that happens, then yeah, by all means. But if they're at 15, no, you do not take one of these defensive linemen that's still available on our board. You got to take, because there's going to be a whole bunch of them still available at the top of round 2 when you're picking. Probably the one you'd take here anyway, and if not, your second or third choice. And there's no difference. There really is little to no difference. The secondary, the defensive backs, the cover corners, however, that is totally different. We've already got the 2 ones that everybody wants gone, and there's a lot of teams that are going to be looking to draft a cornerback in this draft yet, so you better jump on it while there's still one you like. So I have the Titans picking a defensive back, staying put at 15. It will either be William Jackson III or Eli Apple, whoever they have rated higher. I have Eli Apple rated higher, and since I'm the GM in this mock draft, that's what we got. Tennessee Titans select cornerback Eli Apple, and the Detroit Lions are on the clock at number 16. They are running up to the podium as well. A lot of people think they could go offensive line here. They won't. They've got a fairly decent young offensive line, and they will look to add a piece to their offensive line most likely in the second, third, or fourth rounds. But they desperately need to upgrade every tier of their defense. They need defensive line help at both tackle and the other defensive end position opposite Ziggy Ansah. They need major help in the linebacking core, and they need major help in the secondary. They could take whoever is left between Apple and Jackson, assuming that one of those two is still left. In our draft, there is one left. However, they cannot pass up on the opportunity to take a hopefully Anthony Barr, Clay Matthews